Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to my video on cold showers and cold exposure. So this video is going to be broken down into two sections. I'm first going to describe how you do the exercise, or at least how I do it. It's very flexible, however you want to do it is cool. And then in the second part, I'm going to explain why it works in alleviating depression and alleviating the causes rather than the symptoms of depression. So, first of all, how to do it. The way that I do it is the same way that Wim Hof, who you've probably heard of, the way that he does it. And you can download the Wim Hof app and use the breathing bubble in that app. It works perfectly for this exercise. But basically what that involves is just sitting in an upright posture or lying down on the ground and doing 30 breaths of super deep, fast breaths in. So, and then just letting go on the exhale. So doing 30 of those, and what that's going to do is put a shitload of oxygen into your body. And then on the 30th breath, you're going to exhale it all, and then just hold and start a timer and just hold your breath, close your eyes. And you'll find you'll be able to easily do a minute. And you can do a minute or a minute and a half, 2 minutes, whatever feels comfortable. It's definitely not about, pushing yourself too hard, because it's just a precursor for getting into the cold water. So I like to do 3 rounds of those. At the end of that breath hold, when my time is up for holding my breath and I feel like taking an in-breath, then on the in-breath, that's going to be one really big in-breath and squeeze and hold for 10, 15 seconds. So at the end, it's like deep in, and then pushing all of that down, and that feels quite weird, that last part, but it's all pretty safe. And obviously, if you feel uncomfortable, you can just stop the exercise and then start again when you feel good. But yeah, so 3 rounds of that, of the 30 breaths, and then you're ready to get into cold water, whether that's a cold shower or the ocean. And here in Cape Town, the ocean's really cold, so highly recommend that. Can be a great way to start the day. For getting into the water, what you have to bear in mind is that there's a adjustment period of about 2 to 3 minutes where when you get in, it's going to feel really shit. So it's going to feel cold, limbs are going to be painful, not going to feel nice. And what's important is that you just push through those initial 2 or 3 minutes, because there's some amazing physiology in your body that adapts to that. And after those 2 or 3 minutes, it becomes really comfortable and you feel barely any cold. And it's important when you go in to try and not tense up your body and fight the cold, but to actually just be as loose and as limp in it as possible. And try, when you get in, to, instead of fighting the cold with your muscles and trying to tense up and shiver, try and keep your body loose and use your breath and your concentration to try and do something about that discomfort. And there's some really cool things that happen when you do that. And then stay in the water for 5 to 10 minutes. And as soon as you push past that 3-minute barrier, you'll want to stay in there for long. But at least when you start, don't stay in for too long, especially if it's the ocean and it's like 12 degrees, 13 degrees, because you will get quite severe shivers afterwards. But yeah, so 5 to 10 minutes in the water and you're good. And that's basically the practice. And you can do this, every day. You can do it once a week, twice a week. I try to do it twice a week. But if you feel that you really like the benefits of it, or that you need the benefits and that time, in your life, then, go for it. Okay, so on to why it works. And this is a really interesting theory that ties in with my introductory video to this channel, which is about, what our brains have evolved for, versus what they're actually exposed to in our current environment. And we currently live a lifestyle that lacks the physiological stress that we have experienced for millions of years in our evolutionary progression. Okay, for example, going days without food, and obviously having fluctuating temperature exposure. If you think about it, in the past, we weren't always, we didn't always have nice big furry jackets to keep us warm, and fans to keep us cool, and heaters to keep us warm. And so the theory is that the lifestyle that we're currently living, in general, lacks the physiological stresses that keep our brain at its optimum healthy state, and that this lack of thermal stress could play a role in the suboptimal functioning of our brains, leaving us feeling depressed and lethargic. So more specifically, when you get into cold water, it excites your brain, and it overloads your brain with electrical impulses that come from your peripheral nerves to your brain. And we have 3 to 10 times as many cold receptors on our skin as we do warm receptors or heat receptors. And so when you're bombarding it, especially with water, which carries cold really well, that bombards your brain with electrical impulses, which has been shown to be really beneficial for your brain because it acts as an exciter. It also causes vasoconstriction, which is the constriction of all of your blood vessels, and that actually, in your skin, you also have pressure receptors, and that vasoconstriction can cause those pressure sensors to also be set off. So you have a shitload of peripheral nerves being, fired and sending messages to your brain, which puts it in this pretty excited state. It also increases norepinephrine levels fourfold, which is just insane when you bear in mind that, a whole lot of the current, pharmaceutical treatments for depression and anxiety target norepinephrine, amongst other things, but a major part is that it targets norepinephrine and tries to increase the concentration of it in your brain. Here you're doing something that increases it, fourfold, which is just ridiculous. Let's see what else. So cold exposure also produces something called beta endorphin, which is a neurotransmitter that promotes a sense of well-being, and binds to opioid receptors and acts as a painkiller. So there's, many benefits to cold exposure, physiological and psychological. It also forces the body to recover, because your core temperature is, being dropped. It forces your body then, when you come out, to work in sort of overdrive to get that core temperature back to what it was, or to, work harder to keep it there the whole time, I guess. And, the same way as you train muscles when you go to the gym, by applying pressure on them, or you learn chess puzzles to become good at chess. It's this strain causes growth sort of thing. And when you are straining temporarily, your metabolism, your thermoregulatory system, your nervous system, you are exercising them and allowing them to grow and become stronger, which naturally and intuitively has a very beneficial effect on your mental health. And on that point, humans are homeotherms, which means that our core temperature always has to stay the same, or within a very narrow range of temperatures, which is around 36 degrees. And we have evolved very advanced, technology in our thermoregulatory systems to keep this temperature around the zone. But we're using this, beautiful technology less and less and less because of the sedentary lifestyle and comfortable lifestyles that we've developed over the last few thousand years. And, by just, ignoring and allowing this technology to, atrophy in a sense, which has evolved over millions of years, way longer than, us having warm clothes and, warming up the shower to go into it. We were completely, we aren't tapping into nearly as much as we can tap into. And it makes a lot of sense, to me at least, that, when you aren't using all the internal machinery, that could maybe be suboptimal. And what I also really like about this cold exposure as a approach to dealing with depression is that, when you look at other approaches to depression, so the psychological or psychiatric approach to depression, at least in most parts, it's very symptom oriented. If you're taking SSRIs or, MAOIs or, all of the mainstream antidepressants, those are all symptom oriented. Those are all targeting the symptoms. And of course, there's that has a lot to offer, and psychology does deal with the cause in its own way. But what I really like about this approach is, first of all, how, cheap and accessible it is to everyone, pretty much, who has a shower or lives on a coastline. But also that it's approaching it from the causation angle. So, instead of taking it from the symptom side, this is saying, okay, no, well, maybe the cause of the depression is this, and we can deal with the cause of depression, which naturally would alleviate the symptoms. And, the line of thinking with SSRIs and whatever is like, oh, okay, well, there's a serotonin drop. How do we treat that serotonin drop? And this is saying, and norepinephrine drop. And this is saying, well, no, what's causing it? And let's tackle that at the base. And, what I really like about this approach and the approach of a lot of the other practices that are going to be mentioned on this channel is the outlook that it gives someone who has depression. Because if you're someone who has depression, and your perceived only options are to go, the SSRI route or whatever, that's a pretty, sad prospect, because if you have only been exposed to things that are symptom orientated, that kind of implies that you're going to have to carry on taking this thing to treat the symptoms, for the rest of your life, basically, which means you're going to have a lifetime dependence on, pharmaceuticals, and you're going to suffer the, lifelong side effects of those pharmaceuticals. And furthermore, as much as there shouldn't be any stigma around, taking those and taking SSRIs or MAOIs or whatever, naturally there's this implicit thing of like, fuck, I need like treatment, whereas normal people don't, and that level of alienation fucking compounds on top of your depression, anxiety, whatever it is. And so what I really like about this is that it's a completely destigmatized fucking normal thing that we've evolved to do. And in my own life, I've noticed that it's had an incredible effect, mentally and psychologically and physiologically. And, of course, this is, I'm completely, understanding of the fact that symptom treatment is much better than no treatment, and symptom treatment definitely has its place. But not to even subtract from the use of symptom treatment, but just to add on top and just to try, maybe we can try this causation treatment, maybe, in conjunction with symptom treatment. So yeah, I'd really, really recommend this to anyone who is struggling with depression or who isn't. It's pretty fucking kick-ass. Feels pretty good. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. So it's quite impromptu, but really wanted to make it. So yeah, highly recommend. Enjoy.